Imagine creatures that have been around since the time of the dinosaurs and even before, and are still alive today. The velvet worm, a bizarre little predator that traps prey with sticky goo. The lungfish, a fish that can breathe air and survive in drought by burrowing into mud. And the nautilus, a living fossil that's been around for over 500 million years. These are ancient creatures still alive today. Some of the most incredible creatures on Earth have been around for millions of years. The eerie monkfish, with its fishing pole lure, to a creature living in freezing waters with a 1,000-year lifespan. And the gharial, with its unique snout designed for catching fish. These are ancient creatures still alive today. Well, this is a strange looking creature. It's called the velvet worm. These odd but cute little creatures have been around for over 500 million years. Their appearance hasn't changed much. If you've ever seen one, you might think it's a cross between a worm and an insect, but it's neither. It's in its own branch on the tree of life. And I think I get what makes them sorta cute. It's their soft, velvety bodies. They almost look like little fairy tale creatures. Velvet worms are typically about 2 to 10 centimeters long and have segmented bodies with tiny legs that allow them to move slowly across the forest floor. They don't look like it, but they also hunt in a very interesting way. They don't chase down their prey. Instead, they shoot out this sticky adhesive substance from glands near their heads to trap smaller animals. Then they walk over to their prey and eat it alive, using their sharp mandibles to chew through the body. The adhesive can be so strong that the worm can capture animals several times its size. The reason they've survived this long, seemingly unchanged, is partly thanks to their incredibly efficient hunting style. They've found a niche that works perfectly well for them, so there's no need to change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Lungfish are some of the oldest creatures to have ever lived on Earth, dating back more than 400 million years. These fish are often considered the closest living relatives to the first creatures that made the transition from water to land. They've evolved a set of highly specialized traits that allow them to survive in environments where other fish just wouldn't. Lungfish can breathe air. A fish that can breathe air. How wild is that? While most fish use gills to extract oxygen from water, lungfish have both gills and lungs, so they can survive in low oxygen environments like stagnant ponds or dried up riverbeds. And when there's a drought, some species of lungfish can even bury themselves in mud and enter this almost hibernation state, breathing air through their lungs until water returns. Gee, I wonder why these things have survived for hundreds of millions of years. While other fish species may have been wiped out during mass extinctions, lungfish have adapted to survive, making them one of the longest living groups of fish, so cheers to them. The nautilus is one of the most iconic creatures from the deep. When you look at paintings of ancient sea life amongst all the scary extinct monsters, you'll usually see these things as well, but they're still around. The nautilus has been swimming the oceans for over 500 million years. If you've ever seen one, you'll immediately recognize the spiral shell-like structure that it's famous for. The nautilus belongs to an ancient group of cephalopods, which also includes modern squids, octopuses, and cuttlefish. But unlike its more evolved relatives, the nautilus hasn't changed much. It's sometimes called a living fossil, as it's considered one of the oldest species still around today. These things have survived through massive extinction events, and one of the reasons it's managed to stick around for so long is that it's very adaptable in its diet. Nautiluses are opportunistic feeders, scavenging on dead fish, and crustaceans, and smaller marine life. They're also known to hunt smaller fish using their tentacles, but that shell is just beautiful, and a big part of that is because it follows the Fibonacci sequence, a pattern that appears a lot, from the branching of trees to the arrangement of petals and flowers. Sturgeons are massive fish that have been around for more than 200 million years. They were here long before the dinosaurs and have survived through major shifts in the Earth's climate and environment. They're hard to miss. They can grow over 12 feet long and weigh up to 1,500 pounds. They're one of the largest species of fish alive today. Sturgeon are also known as living fossils. They have armored bodies covered in bony plates, and their long, pointy snouts are perfect for sifting through mud and sand in search of food. Unlike many other fish, sturgeons don't have teeth. Instead, they have a specialized structure known as barbels on their snouts, which they use to sense their prey. Sturgeons are bottom feeders, relying on their sense of touch and smell to find things like worms and small fish, again, in the mud down there. They also spend a significant part of their lives in fresh water, but then move to salt water to breed, which makes their life cycle very unique. The tuatara is also called a living fossil, and for good reason. Native only to New Zealand, this reptile is the last surviving member of an ancient order called Rhynchocephalia, a group that lived over 200 million years ago. Despite resembling a lizard, tuataras are not actually lizards, but they belong to the same reptile family. Their closest relatives went extinct a long time ago, and what makes the tuatara even more fascinating is its unique physiology. For example, they have a third eye on the top of their head. It's not very noticeable, but it is there, and it's known as a parietal eye, which is sensitive to light and helps regulate their circadian rhythm. It doesn't work like their other eyes, but it is pretty cool that it's there, and it connects them to more ancient reptiles when their ancestors had more complex ways of sensing things. Another fun fact, the tuatara is incredibly slow growing, and they can live for over 100 years. Monkfish, also known as anglerfish, are a bizarre and ancient species that have been lurking in the deep oceans for over 100 million years. They have a very unique and eerie appearance with their flat, wide bodies, their enormous mouths, the sharp teeth, the bumpiness. Monkfish just look like something from another time. They live in deep water where there's not much light, so they've developed an interesting survival tactic. They have a lure on their heads, a fleshy filament that they use to attract prey. The lure is similar to a fishing pole, and the monkfish dangles it in front of its mouth to attract smaller fish. When a potential meal gets too close, the monkfish strikes, using its large mouth to engulf the prey whole. These fish are excellent predators, capable of swallowing fish much larger than themselves. They're also super adaptable. They can live in all kinds of depths and at different parts of the ocean, so this mix of flexibility and clever hunting has helped them stick around as long as they have. Antarctic sponges are another incredible example of creatures that have survived for a very long time in some of the harshest environments on Earth. These sponges can live for hundreds, even thousands of years, making them some of the oldest living creatures in the animal kingdom. So why do they live so long? Well, it's a result of the frigid environment, which slows their metabolism. In fact, some Antarctic sponges have been found to grow less than 1 millimeter per year, meaning they can take thousands of years to reach their full size. They're found in the icy waters of Antarctica, surviving in a region where very few other species can handle the freezing temperatures and the constant darkness. Something else very strange about these things is they don't rely on sunlight for energy. Instead, they feed on microscopic plankton and bacteria that drift through the water. Antarctic sponges are also super important for the health of the ecosystem. They provide habitats for other organisms, and they play an important role in recycling nutrients. The gharial is a large crocodile-like reptile native to the rivers of the Indian subcontinent. They're the crocodiles that you've seen in nature documentaries, and you're like, oh wait, what the hell is that thing? Doesn't look like a normal crocodile. With that long, thin snout, it's definitely one of the most unique members of the crocodile family. Gharials have been around for over 200 million years, surviving through climate changes and massive shifts in the Earth's ecosystems. They're specialized fish eaters. Their weird snouts are just perfectly suited for catching fish. They use their sharp teeth to grab slippery fish with incredible speed. Unlike other crocodiles, gharials don't need to chase down their prey on land. They just lurk underwater, waiting for the right moment to strike. Their snouts make them highly adaptable for life in rivers, where they often swim with their bodies submerged while keeping only their eyes and nostrils above water. Unfortunately, despite how ancient these things are, the gharial is now critically endangered, with only a few hundred of them left. Horseshoe crabs are another ancient creature that's been around for over 450 million years. Now, horseshoe crabs aren't true crabs. They're actually more closely related to spiders and scorpions, which is odd. These things have a hard horseshoe-shaped exoskeleton, and long tails that they use to steer and maintain balance in the ocean. They live in shallow coastal waters, where they feed on small creatures like worms and algae. What's truly nuts about horseshoe crabs, though, is their unique bodily fluids. It contains a substance called hemolymph, which is used in a special test for bacterial contamination in medical devices and vaccines. This test is critical for making sure pharmaceutical products are safe, so horseshoe crabs have still found a way to be helpful after hundreds of millions of years. And their BLOOD, it's also blue, so that's pretty cool. As you can imagine though, because it's so useful in modern medicine, it's also quite sought after. And over-harvesting has put horseshoe crab populations at risk, making them another ancient species that may not be around forever. The coelacanth is perhaps the most famous living fossil of them all. These deep-sea fish were thought to have gone extinct with the dinosaurs around 65 million years ago, but in 1938, a fisherman off the coast of South Africa pulled up a specimen, shocking the scientific world. These things are the definition of living fossils. They've barely changed since they first appeared over 400 million years ago. These guys have very unusual fins. Unlike most fish, coelacanths have paired lobed fins, which are believed to be the ancestors of the limbs that would eventually evolve in land animals. These fins are highly flexible, and when the coelacanth swims, it moves its fins in this graceful, alternating motion, almost like it's walking on the seafloor. This adaptation has led scientists to believe that coelacanths could hold the key to understanding how some of the earliest creatures on Earth made that transition from water to living on land. Coelacanths are incredibly rare, living at depths of 200 to 2,000 feet in the Indian Ocean. Japanese sailors had plenty to worry about when they set out to sea: storms, shipwrecks, the pure vastness of the unknown, but nothing unsettled them quite like the umibozu, said to be this massive, shadowy entity that would rise up from the ocean on calm nights, a towering black shape with no real features other than its glowing white eyes. Not the type of tentacled or serpentine sea creature you usually picture, and it didn't act like one either. It wouldn't attack right away. Instead, it would demand a barrel from the crew, and if they gave it one, it would use it to then scoop water into their ship until they sank. If they refused, well, things didn't end much better. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. No one really knows where the legend comes from originally, but some say that umibozu is the ghost of a drowned monk, cursed to haunt the sea forever. Others think it's more of a warning, a way to explain how fast things can turn deadly out in the open water. In some versions, it only shows up when someone on board has angered the gods, meaning if you saw one, your fate was already sealed. The Lusca is a creature that haunts the waters off the Caribbean. Once again, this thing probably doesn't look like anything you're imagining. It's said to be half shark, half octopus. Some even describe it having 3 shark's heads, so a pretty bizarre looking monster and equally as terrifying. It lurks in the dark depths of underwater caves, ready to drag unsuspecting swimmers or boats down into the water. Local fishermen and sailors who've spent too much time on the water often share these chilling stories about close encounters with it. Many sightings of the Lusca have been reported near the blue holes of Andros Island in the Bahamas. One of the most famous incidents happened on January 18th of 2011, when what appeared to be the body of this giant octopus washed up on Grand Bahama Island. Witnesses said that the remains looked like just a part of the creature's head and mouth, and the rest of the body missing. Based on what they saw though, local fishermen who were familiar with octopus anatomy estimated that this creature, if intact, would have measured between 20 and 30 feet long when alive. The description of this next creature is pretty strange, but it actually has roots in real-life reports. It's called Steller's sea ape. It was first described by Georg Wilhelm Steller, a German naturalist who came across it during an expedition to the Bering Sea in the 18th century. According to Steller, the creature was seen in the waters near the Commander Islands, a remote part of Russia. What makes it so strange? Well, it was described as this mix between a primate and a seal, an ape-like creature with the body of a seal, complete with dark fur, a wide mouth, and a flat nose. Some reports say it had a tail like a seal's, but with the arms of a monkey even. I told you this one was going to be strange. The sea ape was said to have been spotted in the wild swimming and occasionally popping its head out of the water. There's a theory that it could have been a type of extinct or undiscovered sea mammal, a creature that went extinct before scientists could get a proper chance to identify it. Trunco is another weird one. It's the nickname given to an animal reportedly seen off the coast of Margate, South Africa, on October 25, 1924. The creature was first noticed battling two killer whales, which allegedly fought with it for about 3 hours. Witnesses claim the strange creature used its tail to fend off the whales and even managed to lift itself out of the water by 20 feet at one point. After the battle, the creature's carcass washed ashore on Margate Beach, where it remained for 10 days. The animal was said to be around 47 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 5 feet high. It had a trunk about 5 feet long and 14 inches in diameter, and a tail that measured about 10 feet. One of the most unusual features was its snowy white fur, which was about 8 inches long. Interestingly, the trunk was also attached directly to the torso with no head visible. This led British cryptozoologist Carl Schuker to dub the creature Trunco in his 1996 book, The Unexplained. Ogopogo is the mysterious creature said to live in Lake Okanagan, British Columbia. Described as a serpent-like monster with a long, undulating body, the creature has been part of local folklore for centuries. Indigenous tribes around the lake have long spoken of a water monster said to control the waters, creating waves and whirlpools to drag people under. The first European sighting was recorded in 1872, but the legend really gained traction in the 1920s. Since then, there have been numerous reports with witnesses claiming to see this large creature with humps rising out of the water, sometimes with this horse-like head and reptilian features. Some skeptics argue that Ogopogo is just a misidentified sturgeon or a floating log, but the fact is, sightings just continue to this day. Could it be some prehistoric survivor, a remnant of creatures like the plesiosaur or a giant eel? Hafgufa is a creature that has its roots in Norse mythology, described as a giant sea monster, often said to be the size of a whole island, lurking in the waters of the North Atlantic. Some stories depict it as a whale-like creature, others say it's a type of sea serpent. It's often associated with the kraken, and some believe they could be the same creature, just with different interpretations. According to the sagas, Hafgufa is so large that its movements could stir up dangerously huge waves, making it a threat to sailors in the region. In fact, it was said that it could swallow entire ships whole with just one gulp. The name Hafgufa is believed to come from Old Norse, meaning sea gulp, which of course fits perfectly with the idea of this creature swallowing anything in its path. Organism 46b is a mysterious creature that became famous after being allegedly discovered in Antarctica, described as a massive, shape-shifting octopus-type being, said to be able to manipulate its surroundings with its tentacles. Some reports even claim that it can hypnotize its prey, paralyzing them with this strange mind-controlling ability. The creature was supposedly discovered by a Russian scientific expedition in 2004. They were investigating the icy waters beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. According to the tale, the team encountered this creature in a submerged lake, with the monster being able to grow to over 30 feet long. The creature is said to have the ability to mimic other creatures, allowing it to blend into its environment or appear as a completely different organism to fool predators or prey. The whole thing got attention after an expedition member supposedly shared the tale online, but there's still no solid proof. It's become something of a Russian government cover-up conspiracy. The Ningen is one of the most bizarre creatures in modern cryptozoology. Allegedly, it lives in the icy waters around Antarctica. Most reported sightings come from Japanese sailors. The Ningen is described as a humanoid sea creature with this pale white body that some say resembles a giant twisted version of a human. That's what makes this thing so creepy. The creature is said to be massive, often reported to be around 20 to 30 meters long or 65 to 98 feet, with a head, arms, and legs, but no real distinct facial features. The first report came about in the early 2000s when Japanese fishermen and crew members of research ships started talking about sightings of this bizarre thing. Some say they've seen it swimming near the ship or breaching the surface like a whale. What makes the Ningen so creepy isn't just its size or its appearance, but the way it seems to avoid any form of human contact, keeping its distance and vanishing as quickly as it appears. The Kraken is one of the most infamous sea monsters in folklore, often depicted as this giant octopus or squid type thing that terrorizes sailors by dragging entire ships under the sea. The legend dates back to the 18th century. Stories of a colossal creature lurking off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. Like with many legendary creatures, there are different descriptions, but it's usually said to be so massive that its tentacles can reach out and capsize ships with a single swipe. Some sailors even reported seeing the Kraken's huge arms rise above the surface like a massive wall, causing a storm of panic before the ship was dragged into the deep. The Kraken seems about as outlandish as it gets, but here's the thing. It may not actually be pure fiction. Some think that what these sailors were describing may have actually been giant squids, which can grow to over 40 feet long. The Leviathan. Pretty much the ultimate sea monster, one that's haunted our collective imagination for centuries, even if we don't know it. It comes from ancient texts, most famously the Bible, where it's depicted as this fearsome sea serpent, which has really become the archetype for all monstrous sea creatures. The description varies depending on who's telling the story, but it's often depicted as this enormous dragon-like beast with scales tough enough to withstand the toughest of weapons. Some tales paint it as a creature of chaos, one that could swallow ships whole or cause storms to wreck entire fleets. The name Leviathan comes from the Hebrew Bible, where it's described as an ancient creature of the deep, sometimes associated with destruction and darkness. Over the centuries, it's been linked to the sea itself, a symbol of the unknown and the powerful forces of nature that sailors feared most. The Gaboon viper is a snake found in the jungles of Africa. They can grow pretty large, up to 6 feet long, and they're built to blend in with their surroundings. Its pattern looks almost like dead leaves or tree bark, so it's nearly impossible to spot unless you're looking carefully. But when it feels threatened, it strikes fast, and their fangs can grow up to 2 inches long. The venom is highly toxic, causing rapid, painful swelling, intense pain, and possibly severe shock. The area around the bite can blister up, you might see bruising. In more serious cases, the venom messes with your entire body, can cause uncoordinated movement, make you lose control of your bladder or bowels, and cause your tongue and eyelids to swell up. Eventually, it'll lead to convulsions, loss of consciousness, your BLOOD might stop clotting. If the bite's bad enough, doctors might need to surgically remove tissue or even take off an entire limb. You get the point. This can all get pretty life-threatening. Even after being treated, healing takes time, and there have been cases where people have died during recovery. And a lot of bites occur because people will just accidentally step on these things. That's how well camouflaged they are. Plus, they move quietly. They don't rattle or hiss before they attack. They just sit there waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Goliath bird eater is this massive tarantula found in the rainforests of northern South America, like Brazil and Venezuela. It's the largest spider in the world by weight and size, and its leg span can reach up to 12 inches or 30 centimeters. They spend most of their time in burrows, only coming out at night to hunt. You'll mostly find them in the Amazon rainforest, hiding in marshy, swampy areas. In terms of what they eat, well, you'd guess it's birds, based on the name, and yeah, they'll eat a bird if they feel like it, but birds don't make up the bulk of their diet. The fact that they can, though, is just horrifying. They'll mostly eat large insects, frogs, and small reptiles. How they eat is also super icky though. A bird eater will drag its prey back to its burrow and then suck out all its liquids, kind of like a chupacabra. And when threatened, the Goliath bird eater gets defensive. It'll rub its legs and abdomen to release tiny hairs that'll irritate your skin and mucous membranes. It can also bite. Thankfully, their venom isn't deadly to humans, but it is painful, a bit like a wasp sting in terms of pain. But who cares about the venom? We're talking about a 12-inch spider. If that doesn't give you the ick, I'm really not sure what will. A giant African land snail is a pretty incredible looking animal. They really live up to the giant title. I mean, look at these things. For a snail, that is downright terrifying, but these creatures aren't as exotic as you'd think they are, at least not now. Originally, in the jungles of Africa, these snails have been causing a lot of trouble around the world as an invasive species. They're found in urban areas and agricultural land nowadays, where they wreak havoc on crops and spread disease. They like to hide during the day, typically in shady spots like leaf piles or tree trunks. They're most at home in warmer, humid environments, but they can tolerate a wide range of temperatures too, even freezing cold. They can also survive without food or water for long stretches of time by sealing themselves in their shells. And this adaptability makes them pretty dangerous when you consider the fact that they carry a parasite that can cause a dangerous form of meningitis in humans. If you eat one of these things raw or even touch one, at times you could get infected, and this parasite can be life-threatening. These giant snails also transmit plant diseases, so farmers absolutely hate these things. There have been times when flamethrowers have had to be used to try and eradicate them. Bullet ants, found in the rainforests of South America, aren't just any ordinary ants. These things are known for having the most powerful sting in the insect world. The pain is said to feel quite literally like being shot, and the pain lasts for hours. Some will even say up to 24 hours. And during that time, it's almost impossible to think about anything else. I would probably rather die than go through that. It's so bad that people have described it as feeling like fire walking over your skin. Bullet ants are pretty large too, about the size of your pinky. And they aren't shy creatures. They're super aggressive and territorial, so if you get too close to their colony, expect to feel the full brunt of their sting. Their sting is so notorious that some Amazonian tribes will use them for initiation rituals. Young men will wear these gloves filled with these ants, and the gloves are left on for usually about 10 minutes, and they're just bitten repeatedly. Next up, we have bull sharks. Yes, these sharks are often found in the Amazon River as well. They're known for being one of the most dangerous sharks in the world. They're aggressive, territorial, and they can live in both saltwater and freshwater. This means they can be found in places like the Amazon River, where they lurk in murky water, often coming pretty close to the shore. These sharks will eat pretty much anything. They'll go after fish, birds, river dolphins, and mammals, humans included. They're big too. Female bull sharks can reach about 8 feet long and weigh over 290 pounds, while males are a little smaller. But there are rare cases of bull sharks getting even bigger, hitting up to 13 feet. On top of that, they're pretty bulky, with a body shape that makes them heavier than other sharks of similar length. And not only are these sharks one of the 3 shark species most likely to attack humans, they also have an insanely powerful bite. Their jaw pressure can reach up to 1,330 pounds of force, which pound for pound is said to be the strongest bite of any shark species. To put it simply, they can just crush almost anything with their teeth. The Brazilian wandering spider is one of the deadliest spiders in the world. Its venom can cause excruciating pain, and in some cases it's even fatal. But what really sets this spider apart is its style of hunting. Most spiders wait around in their webs for their prey to come to them, but the Brazilian wandering spider actually goes out and looks for its food. They're nocturnal, so at night they roam the jungle chasing down insects, amphibians, and even small mammals like mice. They're big, hairy, and incredibly fast. They'll often sprint after their prey and then pounce on it. If you're camping in the jungle, you might end up with one of these things crawling into your tent. The harpy eagle. This is one of the most terrifying but impressive birds of prey in the world. These things are massive, with a wingspan that can stretch up to 7 feet. They have the biggest talons of any living eagle, some as long as 5 inches, big enough to snatch up sloths and monkeys right out of the trees, which is mostly what they hunt. They're not the type to sit and wait like some birds of prey. Harpy eagles actively roam the jungle in search of their food, often swooping down from a perch to grab their prey. Their preferred hunting ground is the dense lowland rainforests of Central in South America, where they stalk the treetops. They're strong enough to pick up prey that weighs about half their own body weight. And when hunting, they'll grab their prey with those massive talons, fly off with them, and bring them back to their nest. Next up is the satanic leaf-tailed gecko. That's right, we have a gecko spawned from the fiery pits of hell. Forget that gecko from those car insurance commercials. These things look like they were forged from magma. It gets its nickname for a reason. I mean, look at it. Its body is shaped like a dead leaf, and it has a tail that looks like it's been chewed up and spat out. And this is no accident. The gecko's appearance is a way of blending in with the forest environment of Madagascar. And this gecko has the ability to change color. It's not like a chameleon that shifts through a rainbow of colors, but more like it can match the color and pattern of its immediate surroundings. Again, this helps the gecko avoid being someone else's lunch. Also, those eyes. They're huge, reddish orange, and have vertical pupils, super devilish looking. And I love when these things go all red and like lava looking. Really cool. Their eyes are also adapted for low light conditions, helping these geckos hunt for insects in the dimly lit forests. Next up, we have eye-eyes. These things look like creatures you'd see on whatever planet the Greys come from. Just very creepy and alien looking. Eye-eyes are some weird creatures. They're lemurs, but not really the cute fluffy ones that you typically think of. These guys look like they've been pieced together from various different animals. They're just really mangy looking. I don't know, some people might find these cute. I just don't. They have big eyes and bushy tails, which sounds pleasant enough, but their most distinctive feature is their freakishly long, thin fingers. Again, very alien looking. Their middle finger is especially elongated, which is kind of awesome, but they use it for tapping on tree bark to find grubs and insects hiding underneath. There's also a myth that they're a harbinger of bad luck. Some folks in Madagascar, where eye-eyes are again found, believe these creatures are omens of doom, and some think that if an eye-eye points its long, bony finger at you, bad luck is coming your way. Finally, we have Darwin's bark spider. Darwin's bark spider, a small arachnid also native to Madagascar, builds incredible webs. While the spider itself is quite small, its webs are absolutely colossal, sometimes spanning rivers. And they're sturdy too. If you come across one without knowing anything about these spiders, you'd probably think Shelob was stalking the forest. The silk they produce to build their webs is incredibly strong. In fact, it's approximately 10 times stronger than Kevlar. The females, which are bigger than the males, build webs that can sometimes measure around 80 feet across. The strength and size of their webs allows them to capture not only small insects, but also larger prey. Webs are often found with upwards of 30 prey insects caught in them. The Fouke monster, aka the Boggy Creek monster, is probably most famous for the cult 1972 docu-horror movie The Legend of Boggy Creek. But stories about this creature stalking the forests around Fouke, Arkansas actually go back to 1851. But in 1971, this creature that had only been whispered about by locals suddenly made headlines when a disturbing report came from a couple named Bobby and Elizabeth Ford. Elizabeth had been sleeping on the couch and thought a bear was reaching through her window. Well, it turns out it was not a bear, but a large ape-like creature. Her husband and brother-in-law chased it off, firing shots at it, but they couldn't take it down. Later, they found 3-toed footprints near the house and scratches on the porch. A few weeks later, 3 people reported seeing the same creature cross a highway, and other locals and visitors started reporting strange sightings too. Over the years, more tracks were found and people kept spotting the creature. In 1991, someone claimed to see it jump from a bridge. By 1997, there were 40 reported sightings, and in 1998, it was supposedly seen near a creek bed. The Fouke monster is still a big part of local legend, with sightings continuing from time to time. Stories about a lizard man stalking Lee County, South Carolina date back to 1988. It all kicked off when local sheriffs were called to check out a vehicle that had been damaged outside a house near a swamp. The car had huge tooth marks and scratches all over it. Once the story hit the news, a teenager named Christopher Davis came forward with his own experience. He said that 2 weeks prior, his car had also been messed up, but this time he had actually seen what did it. He described the creature as this massive 7-foot tall lizard-like thing with 3 fingers on each hand, red eyes, and green, wet, scaly skin. Christopher was driving home from work one night when he got a flat tire. As he was fixing it, he saw the creature coming toward him. Freaked out, he jumped into his car and tried to drive off, but the lizard man was fast and it actually chased him down, running at 40 miles per hour, and even jumped onto the roof of his car, scratching at it. Christopher slammed on the brakes, sending the creature flying off, and then he sped away. Once Christopher's story hit the papers, the whole town just went crazy. People were reporting more sightings, and the local radio station even offered a $1 million reward to anyone who could catch the lizard man. But by the end of that summer, the reports started to fade out, and local sheriffs started saying it was probably just a bear, because, of course, bears and scaly, red-eyed lizard monsters look exactly the same, right? The Enfield monster case started in April of 1973, when a strange creature was reported in Enfield, Illinois. The first sighting happened one night when a man named Henry McDaniel heard scratching at his door. Thinking it was a bear, he grabbed a firearm and flashlight and cautiously made his way to the front door. But when he opened it, he saw something. It just wasn't a bear. He described the creature as being about 4.5 feet tall, with 3 legs, short arms, and big pink glowing eyes. It was grayish and hairless. McDaniel fired at the thing, hitting it, and the creature made a sound like a wildcat before hopping away, covering 50 feet in just 3 jumps. When McDaniel called the police, they found strange footprints near the house, which were dog-like but apparently had 6 toes. McDaniel's screen door had also these large scratches taken out of it. A couple weeks later, McDaniel reported seeing the creature again near railroad tracks. A search party later reported coming across an ape-like creature near an abandoned building. More strange sightings started pouring in, and some started to wonder if the creature was some escaped animal from the zoo, like a kangaroo or an ape. McDaniel, who'd once had a kangaroo as a pet, oddly enough, was sure that this thing hadn't been a kangaroo though. Till this day, no one has ever figured out what was lurking in the woods around Enfield, Illinois. The Michigan Dogman is a creature that's been part of local legend since 1887, when it was first reported in Wexford County, Michigan, described as this 7-foot creature standing on its hind legs, but with the torso of a man and the head of a dog. It's also said to have glowing blue or amber eyes and lets out this terrifying howl. It sounds like an eerily distorted human scream. While it wasn't widely known until later, the Dogman is said to have been haunting areas around the Manistee River long before the first reports came out. The first big encounter, though, was in 1887, when 2 lumberjacks claimed to have spotted a creature with the body of a man and the head of a dog. And over the years, there have been other sightings, including one in 1937 in Paris, Michigan, where a man was attacked by wild dogs, one of which was walking on 2 legs. There were more reports in the 50s and 60s, and in the early 90s, a man simply known as Ben to the press reported seeing the Dogman multiple times in Ottawa County. One time he saw it standing behind a car in his parents' driveway. Another witness, in 1994, hit a very large animal with his car, thinking it was a bear, but found gray fur left behind in the grill. The Honey Island Swamp Monster, also called the Cajun Sasquatch, is a creature said to live in the Honey Island Swamp in Louisiana. Descriptions of it are pretty similar to Bigfoot, a large, hairy, bipedal creature, about, again, 7 feet tall. I don't know what it is with all these 7 feet tall monsters. This one, though, with gray hair and glowing yellow or red eyes, and a horrible smell. People who've claimed to see it say it looks like an ape-human hybrid, and the creature is even sometimes called the Louisiana Wookiee, or just the Thing. Some people have reported finding unusual footprints, with only 4 toes instead of the usual 5, which is pretty strange for a primate. The first reported sighting happened in 1963. Harlan Ford, a retired air traffic controller turned wildlife photographer, had taken footage of this strange creature with a Super 8 camera. The footage was only found after his death, in 1980 though, when a reel of film showing the creature was found among his belongings. But even back in 1974, Ford and his friend Billy Mills said they had found strange footprints and the body of a wild boar with its throat slashed in the swamp. Today, people still believe the creature roams the swamp. Some people believe the creature, or creatures, may be escaped circus chimpanzees from a train crash that happened in the early 20th century, and then the story goes they might have just ran out into the woods, and eventually adapted to their new environment. Now, we've covered a lot of big, hairy monsters, so let's change things up for a moment with something very different. I don't know what to make of this one. Is it a ghost, a demonic spirit? Not sure, but the story comes from Reddit user Mr. Witch, who writes, "I was hiking through the remnants of a remote, long-abandoned town in the surrounding area. To get as far into the woods as I was, you had to cross fallen trees over a creek 3 times. I had just crossed the 3rd bridge and was about 5 miles in when something blue caught my eye just ahead of me. There was a man, in his 60s at least, wearing blue satin pajamas, sitting in a tree. The closer I got to him, the louder he laughed. It wasn't a maniacal laugh, but it set off all the alarms in my head nevertheless. He also wasn't wearing any shoes, but looked well-groomed and clean. I gave him a friendly nod as I passed, and he just kept laughing. Then it stopped. I turned, and he was gone. There was no branch cracking, plants rustling, nothing. He was just gone. Still rubs me the wrong way. The area I was in was pretty rough, like very secluded. Not very many people venture as deep as I was that day. No idea what was going on there." In May of 1882, 2 boys, Ed and Joe, were fishing in a creek near Crosswick, Ohio, when they encountered something that would go down in history as one of Ohio's strangest stories, and that is saying a lot for Ohio. Ed and Joe heard rustling in the bush and started to see what they'd later describe as a massive-sized snake. The creature then charged at them, and when it got close to Ed, it suddenly grew arms and legs. 2 arms shot out, and 2 legs appeared from some hidden spot on its body. It grabbed Ed and started dragging him toward a hollow tree. The 2 friends, of course, screamed in terror, and 3 men working in a nearby quarry ran to help. By the time they got there, the creature was trying to crawl into the tree with Ed still in its grip. The men shouted, scaring the creature off, and Ed was rescued. Though he was physically okay and expected to recover soon, he did have strange convulsions and bouts of terror afterward. Now, that very same day, a group of 60 men armed with pitchforks and axes gathered around said tree. When they started chopping, the creature leaped out and ran upright like a person off into the forest. It was described as this 30 to 40 feet long creature, 12 to 14 feet tall, and it sped away and vanished. No one ever saw the creature again, but it became known as the Crosswick Monster. In 1952, the small town of Flatwoods, West Virginia became the site of one of the strangest cryptid encounters in history. It all started when a group of youngsters and their teacher were playing baseball when they saw a mysterious light in the sky, which crashed into the nearby woods. Curious, they went to investigate, and they saw something they couldn't make sense of. A 10-foot tall creature with a glowing red face, a spade-shaped head, and a body wrapped in this metallic-looking fabric. It was also hovering in place. It began slowly moving toward the group, who quickly dashed back out of the forest and into town to report the incident. There were multiple investigations, but no concrete evidence was found to explain the encounter. In 1973, deep in the forests of Tennessee, a group of hunters reported an unusual encounter with a creature they could only describe as a wild man. The group was out hunting when they came across a large, hairy figure standing between the trees, staring at them with glowing eyes. The creature was roughly 7 feet tall, with thick, matted fur covering its body. The hunters described it as having a pungent, musky odor similar to a wet dog. Yum. One of the hunters fired a shot at the creature, but it disappeared into the woods before anyone could get a good look at it. The group found no tracks or evidence of the creature afterward either. This sighting would become part of a larger collection of, quote, wild man sightings in the Appalachian region. And ever since, there have been theories that there could be some reclusive, undiscovered species living deep out in the woods. This last story just chilled me to the bone. I'll call it the Watcher in the Woods. It comes from Reddit user Jamie11134 and goes as follows. I live right next to the woods. I can see them out my window. Well, one night I was sitting on my bed watching TV when a light flashed through my window. I looked around and there was nothing there, so I brushed it off as me being crazy. About 5 minutes later, it happened again, so I looked around again, but there was still nothing. The third time it happened, I was getting ticked off and I assumed it was one of my students stupid neighbor's kids who always mess around. I opened my window to tell them to piss off, but as I looked closer, the only thing I saw was a black purse, one that I had lost about a week before when I went clubbing. Something in my head was screaming to get away from the window, so I shut it and closed the curtains, locked my bedroom door before calling my dad. He came over immediately and grabbed the bag from outside, then locked all the windows and doors before checking the whole house. We looked through the purse, and nothing had been taken, but there was also a small note crumpled in it that said something along the lines of, "Watch your back." My dad called the cops, who also did a full sweep of the house and took the purse back with them. The next morning, they found a flashlight and a backpack, which had a small collection of pictures of me that had been taken over what looked to be the course of a year. This video supposedly shows a woolly mammoth crossing a river in Siberia. It quickly went viral, racking up 3 million views on YouTube and more. People couldn't help but wonder if the mammoth had been living for centuries in remote parts of Siberia, completely untouched by humans. Now, whether you think this video is a hoax or not, there have been some interesting reports of supposed living mammoths. They're believed to have gone extinct over 10,000 years ago, but there are still stories floating around about them being spotted in some of the world's most remote places, especially in the northern hemisphere's tundra. Native American tribes have been telling tales about these creatures for years. The Northeast Algonquins talked about a great moose with a weird extra limb growing between its shoulders that it used to prepare its bed. The Naskapi people from northeastern Labrador spoke of a monster with a long nose that it would use to hit people. Even Siberian tribesmen have reported seeing large, shaggy beasts roaming around, though no one's actually caught solid proof. There have been mammoth sightings across Asia, South America, North America, and Russia. What you're looking at here is a massive-sized sturgeon. The footage originally posted by Ronald Drago was shared and reposted all over the internet, and it's easy to see why. The creature is just a monster. The sturgeon is an ancient creature that's been around since the early Jurassic period. Some of these fish can grow over 20 feet long, which is as big as a great white shark. They mostly feed on small animals from the ocean floor and are harmless to humans, but because of their size, they can still pose a threat. There have been reports of sturgeons leaping out of the water, landing on boats, and causing serious injuries or even death. They can weigh over 1,000 pounds. This footage here was posted to YouTube by Adam Pitts, who'd hauled in this Jurassic era sized beast in Florida. A bunch of hunters had been trying to snag this thing because it was responsible for some deaths. No surprise there. This gator was not missing out on any meals. Pitts and his team had a long battle with the gator before finally hauling it out of the lake. It was about 12'8". It's sad, but unfortunately some animal populations just need to be controlled sometimes, especially when it comes to people's safety. This wasn't just a hunt for the thrill of it, it was for the protection of the community. This is not an AI video. This is a real piece of footage taken back in 2018 at a golf course in South Carolina. This gator was caught strolling through the golf course on its way to somewhere. It's become a pretty famous video. The event was taken by multiple people from different angles. Video of it showed up on the news, and it's understandable. It looks like footage of a living dinosaur. Even the family of deer in the background just couldn't help stand there in total shock. Like, what are we looking at right now? They're standing there like a deer in headlights. Alright, I guess deer aren't really all that hard to surprise. But still, gators are some of the oldest animals on the planet. I still find it so cool that you really are looking at a living dinosaur when you see one. This footage here was captured by members of a Japanese expedition crew in the Congo. They were seeking out evidence of an elusive animal known to the locals as Mokele Membe, a plesiosaur-like creature believed by some cryptozoologists to be a remnant of the Cretaceous period. Mokele Membe comes from Bantu mythology. It's said to live in the Congo River Basin. It's described in different ways. Some say it's a reptilian creature, others think of it as a spirit, but the most popular description is an ancient dinosaur-like sauropod. In the early 1900s, cryptozoologists got really interested in this legend, with some launching expeditions to find proof of the creature's existence. Most experts believe that the stories about Mokele Membe are probably based on sightings of the black rhinoceros, which used to roam the region. Some even even think the myth may have been influenced from earlier tales about Great Zimbabwe. This next creature is called Tuatara. Just look at this silly, stubby-legged little lizard. Cute as can be, according to me. I know some people are freaked out by reptiles and lizards, but I really enjoy them. So these things can be found roaming around in New Zealand. They look like a lot of reptiles you've probably seen, very similar to iguanas, but these things have quite the history. They've been around for an estimated 225 million years. So once again, they're basically living dinosaurs, just very small ones. Pretty cool. What's also interesting about these things is that they don't have ear holes like modern day reptiles, so their hearing is, of course, limited, but they can still respond to low frequencies. Next up, we have the Chinese giant salamander, and when I say giant, I do mean giant. These are the largest amphibians in the world. Some of them can reach up to 6 feet in length, weighing in at about 110 pounds. That sounds like a salamander that would have been roaming the earth during the time of the dinosaurs, and they did. The Chinese giant salamander has been around since the Jurassic period, about 170 million years ago. These creatures are also known for their very unique and haunting sounds. They've been described as rather unsettling. Some people describe them as barks or hissing, but the creepiest noise is the high-pitched crying, almost like a very young human. Given how huge these things are and the fact that they clearly do not look human, that would be pretty freaky hearing a sound like that come out of an animal like this. But honestly, I still think these creatures are kind of cute in their own weird way. And we have another dinosaur, the Komodo dragon. These things are insane. They're huge, some of the biggest lizards on the planet, weighing more than a full-grown human in some cases, and these things are as dangerous as they look. They've been known to attack and even kill humans, and to top it off, their bite is venomous. Scientists have found Komodo dragon fossils that are about 4 million years old. These giant lizards are found in Indonesia today, specifically 5 islands, one of which is called Komodo Island, which, no surprise, has the largest population of Komodo dragons in the country. You can't just wander onto this island, not that you'd ever want to. It's very strictly a guided tour situation. If you ever visit, trust me, don't want to go alone. If you stray too far, it could be the last mistake you make. Komodo dragons are no joke. Along with crocodiles and alligators, they're one of the closest things we've got to real-life dinosaurs. These reptiles can reach lengths of 10 feet with razor-sharp teeth and venomous saliva. They eat whatever they can catch: monkeys, deer, boars, goats, and yeah, sometimes humans. They're just pure predators. Now, they don't attack humans all the time, but between 1974 and 2012, there were 24 reported attacks in Komodo National Park. The shoebill stork. These birds have been around for 30 million years at the least. If you were to look at every living bird today and you had to just pick one that looked like it had been around since the prehistoric times, it would have to be the shoebill stork, right? This is definitely the one I'd be picking. Look at the size of the beak on these things, very dinosaur-esque. Shoebills are found in the swamps and wetlands of Africa. They're massive birds, standing about 4 to 5 feet tall with a wingspan of 7 to 8 feet. They have this unmistakable shaped bill, which can reach lengths of up to 9.5 inches just on its own. This massive bill is a formidable weapon for catching prey, which is mostly fish. They're known to be very patient hunters, standing motionless for hours before striking at lightning speed. And these birds really are just as intimidating as they look. Highly skilled hunters that are capable of preying on animals as large as young crocodiles. And to top it off, they make this eerie clicking sound with their beak. They sound almost like an automatic firearm or the predator. What you are looking at here is a horseshoe crab. Now, crabs may not be all that exciting to you, but these ones are different. Horseshoe crabs are one of the oldest creatures on the planet. They've been a staple of the Earth for around 445 million years. That is a lot of years. That's back before the land split off to form the continents that we have now. Earth still consisted of one single supercontinent when these things were around. These ancient arthropods have seen old friends go and new ones come along, and when I say friends, I mean entire species evolve and then go extinct. They've seen a lot. And interestingly, even though they have crab in their name, they're not actually crabs. They're more closely related to arachnids. The woolly mammoth, a massive shaggy-haired elephant relative, disappeared about 4,000 years ago, but scientists are working to bring it back. One biotech company called Colossal Biosciences is actually trying to do this, using gene editing technology to insert mammoth traits into the DNA of Asian elephants, the mammoth's closest living relatives. The goal is to create a hybrid that looks and behaves like a mammoth, with thick fur, a layer of fat for insulation, and the ability to survive in freezing temperatures. But why put all this time and effort into something like this? I mean, sure, it would be cool to see a real-life mammoth in person, but is there any other purpose behind research like this aside from the novelty? Well, in this case, yes, it's also an attempt to combat climate change. Back in the day, mammoths actually helped maintain Arctic permafrost by compacting the snow, which kept the ground cold. So scientists think reintroducing mammoth-like elephants to the Siberian tundra, for example, could help slow permafrost thawing. But it's one thing breeding a mammoth in a lab, creating a healthy, self-sustaining population of mammoths is another challenge entirely, and even if the science works, there are ethical things to consider here. Should we be bringing back an animal that no longer has a natural place in the world? And what about the elephants being modified in the process? Can't be fun for them. Still though, Colossal Biosciences claims they're making steady progress, aiming to have the first mammoth calves born within the next few years, and if that happens, it could be the start of something groundbreaking. The dodo is one of the most famous extinct animals in history. This chubby, flightless, silly bird lived on the island of Mauritius until humans and the rats, dogs, and pigs they brought with them wiped them out by the late 1600s. The dodo is often used as a symbol of extinction, but scientists are hoping to change that by bringing it back to life. Once again, Colossal Biosciences, along with researchers from the University of California, Santa Cruz, has fully sequenced the dodo genome. Now they're working on editing the DNA of the Nicobar pigeon, the closest living relative to the dodo, to recreate a dodo-like bird. The goal here is to use the dodo as kind of a test case for de-extinction, studying how reintroducing a lost species will affect the natural ecosystems. That said, reintroducing the dodo wouldn't be easy. Mauritius has changed drastically since the dodo went extinct, and they're not sure whether a newly created dodo would have a place in today's environment, but no better way to find out than to try. Now we're getting into the really controversial territory. Unlike the woolly mammoth or dodo, Neanderthals weren't just animals, they were another species of human. They lived alongside our ancestors, interbred with them, and disappeared about 40,000 years ago. Some scientists think that if we really wanted to, we could bring them back, but should we? Harvard geneticist George Church has said that in theory we could clone a Neanderthal by editing modern human DNA to match a Neanderthal's genetics. Of course, that would require a human surrogate mother to carry and give birth to a Neanderthal baby, and I think the list of women signing up for that would be slim. Pregnancy is a nightmare already, from what I've heard, but at least the light at the end of the tunnel is that you'll have this adorable little baby to love when it's all over, hopefully. A little Neanderthal creature, though, probably is not the gold at the end of the rainbow most parents are hoping for. And there's also the question of what kind of life a Neanderthal would have. Would they be treated as a person, a science experiment, a sideshow attraction? Even ignoring the ethical issues here, there are practical concerns. Neanderthals adapted to a more Ice Age environment, and their brains worked differently from ours. Could they even function in today's world? Would they want to? While the idea of resurrecting a lost branch of humanity is definitely fascinating, it's also one of the most morally complicated things science could ever attempt. The Tasmanian tiger, or thylacine, was a strange marsupial predator native to Australia and Tasmania. It looked like a dog with stripes, had a pouch kind of like a kangaroo, and it could open its jaws wider than any modern mammal. The last known thylacine died in captivity in 1936, but there are rumors there may still be a small group of them roaming around. Now scientists want to bring it back for real. Our friends over at Colossal Biosciences and the University of Melbourne are using CRISPR gene editing to modify the DNA of the numbat, which kind of looks like a squirrel-sized version of the Tasmanian tiger. The idea is to reintroduce thylacine traits into numbats, eventually creating an animal nearly identical to the extinct predator. If they succeed, they plan to release them into Tasmania to restore ecological balance. Since the thylacine was an apex predator, it being gone may have disrupted the natural order of things. But even if they managed to create a thylacine-like creature, would it actually behave like one? No one really knows. There's also the question of whether these animals could survive in modern Australia, where their old habitat has changed quite a bit. And again, it's an exciting idea, but a gamble, and one that may take decades to pull off. The Irish elk was one of the largest deer species ever, with males sporting antlers up to 12 feet across. Now, these weren't actually exclusive to Ireland. The Irish elk roamed across Europe and Asia before going extinct around 7,000 years ago. Scientists think there were a couple of factors here: climate change and human hunting, pretty typical stuff. But because the Irish elk is closely related to modern deer species like the fallow deer, scientists think they may be able to use selective breeding and genetic engineering to recreate it. Since deer still thrive in many parts of the world, reintroducing the Irish elk might not be as far-fetched as bringing back something like the dodo or the mammoth. But again, just because we could doesn't necessarily mean we should. A deer with 12-foot antlers sounds cool until you realize it might not even fit in modern forests or even be able to survive in today's climate. And let's be honest, if these things started wandering onto highways, that would be a disaster waiting to happen. Still, if scientists pull it off, seeing these ancient giants roam again would be pretty incredible. The cave lion was one of the largest big cats to ever exist, roaming across Europe and Siberia before going extinct about 10,000 years ago. Unlike modern lions, it was bigger, fluffier, probably better suited to cold climates. Scientists have been able to recover some pretty well-preserved cave lion cubs from Siberian permafrost, and now they're considering bringing them back because cave lions are closely related to modern lions. Researchers think cloning or selective breeding could eventually revive them. They want to reintroduce them to places like Siberia, where they might help control herbivore populations. Some argue that since cave lions once roamed these areas, they could fit right back into the ecosystem. But obviously, introducing a prehistoric predator back into the environment isn't exactly risk-free. Even if they managed to bring back cave lions, where would they live exactly? In an age where regular lions are already struggling to survive, throwing an Ice Age cat into the mix seems kinda nuts to me. Plus, imagine the headlines: genetically engineered super lion escapes, eats entire village. Maybe this would be interesting. The moa was a massive flightless bird from New Zealand, with some species standing up to 12 feet tall, which is horrifying. Unlike the dodo, which fell victim to European colonization, the moa was wiped out centuries earlier by the Maori, who hunted it to extinction by around 1400. But you guessed it, some scientists want to bring it back. Using DNA recovered from moa fossils and preserved remains, some researchers think there's a possibility they can edit the genome of the moa's closest living relative, the South Island takahe, to recreate a bird similar to the extinct one. Since New Zealand's ecosystem evolved without large land predators, the idea is that reintroducing the moa could help restore the natural balance. But there are a few problems. First, moa weren't just big, they were slow and defenseless, making them pretty easy targets for modern invasive species. Second, the forests and grasslands they used to roam have changed. We don't really know if a revived moa would have enough habitat left to survive. The quagga was a bizarre looking zebra that only had stripes on one half of its body. Almost looked like nature just ran out of ink and then we're just like, whatever, they're gonna go extinct anyway, why try? It lived in South Africa but was hunted to extinction by the late 1800s. Unlike some of the more ambitious de-extinction projects, scientists have already made progress on reviving the quagga without even using cloning. All they've done is selective breeding, finding zebras with kind of quagga-like traits and then breeding them together. And over time, they've created animals that do look very similar to the original quagga. And sure, they're not genetically identical to the old ones, but they're close enough that they could one day roam the plains of South Africa just like their ancestors. The big question is whether reviving the quagga actually serves any purpose beyond proving that it can be done. And in this case, yeah, I don't know, doesn't really seem like it. Still, of all the de-extinction efforts, this one seems the most practical and least likely to result in unexpected disaster, so there's that. The great auk was basically a northern hemisphere penguin. Couldn't fly, but it was an incredible swimmer, using its flipper-like wings to dive for fish. Unfortunately, they were easy pickings for humans who hunted them to extinction by the mid-1800s. Now scientists want to use gene editing to modify the DNA of its closest living relative, the razorbill, to recreate them. If successful, These new ones could be released onto remote islands where their ancestors once lived, bringing back an important part of the North Atlantic ecosystem. But would the modern world even have room for the great auk? Climate change, pollution, overfishing, that's dramatically altered the oceans since this bird went extinct. Even if scientists managed to recreate it, there's no guarantee it could survive today. On the other hand, if successful, it could be a major step toward using de-extinction to repair damaged ecosystems. So imagine a manatee, but bigger, way bigger. The Steller's sea cow was a massive marine mammal that could grow up to 30 feet long and weigh over 20,000 pounds. It used to live in the North Pacific, but was hunted to extinction by the late 1700s, less than 30 years after being discovered. Now, some scientists think they can bring them back. Unlike other extinct animals, the Steller sea cow does have a very close modern relative, the dugong, meaning once again there's a possibility they could modify dugong DNA to recreate something similar to the extinct sea cow. Since sea cows once played an important part in keeping kelp forests healthy, bringing them back could also help restore marine habitats, but the modern ocean isn't exactly a safe place for giant, slow-moving herbivores. Pollution and boat traffic make it unlikely that a revived Steller sea cow would have an easy time surviving, and considering that humans wiped them out already, who's to say it wouldn't just happen again? Still, if scientists succeed, we might one day see these massive creatures gliding through the ocean once again, as well as everything else on this list. What do you think of that?
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have the Phronema. Meet one of the ocean's most inscrutable creatures, Phronema. This barbaric little parasite has earned its place in deep-sea horror stories for the way it creates a mobile nursery for its young. How, you ask? By hijacking an unfortunate salp, turning it into a hollow barrel, and crawling inside to navigate the ocean, food and water at the ready. Often linked to the chest-bursting xenomorph from the Alien franchise, this open ocean parasite carves out the insides of jelly-like salps, transforming its victim into a barrel-shaped pram. Hunkering down in this hollowed-out home, they then drift through the water, protected from predators and conveniently stocked with a roomy nursery for its offspring. Scientists have debated whether the salp remains truly alive during its forced retirement as a floating hostel, but one thing is certain: the host's insides are pretty much stripped away. Male Phronema even tote around their own barrels, possibly to attract mates. Whatever the reason, it is a chilling reminder that life in the deep can be far stranger and more horrifying than anything we dream up for the big screen. Next, we are talking about the alien eel. Nobody goes fishing expecting to face a mouthful of nightmares, but that's what happened to one angler in New York's Hudson Valley. He yanked an eel-like beast out of the water only to discover a round, suction cup mouth filled with concentric rows of razor-sharp teeth. That aquatic horror show turned out to be a sea lamprey, a parasitic creature that latches onto other fish, punctures their skin, and drains their fluids. The fisherman's reaction was simple and blunt: weirdest thing I've ever caught. After seeing the unsettling photos, the internet couldn't agree more, with plenty of people likening it to an alien from a sci-fi movie. It is just safe to say that this is one species no one wants to tangle with again. Next, we are talking about the long-nosed creature. Deep in the cold waters off of Newfoundland in Canada, a fisherman hauled up something that looked more like a mutant cartoon character than a fish. With a floppy, rubbery snout and what seemed like wings on its sides, the catch was almost too bizarre to believe. The baffled crew initially guessed it might be a platypus, until marine biologists identified it as a long-nosed chimera. These cartilaginous cousins of sharks and rays are rarely seen because they lurk in deep, dark waters up to 3,000 meters down. They even come equipped with a venomous spine, which means anyone who accidentally reels one in should handle it with extreme caution. For this fisherman, it was enough weirdness to last a lifetime. Next, we are talking about the mysterious Canadian creature. Some mysteries remain unsolved for years, just like the bizarre fish caught in 2009 from a vast underwater canyon off Nova Scotia Alaska called the gully. This dark brown creature had an oversized head, curved teeth, and eyes so small they barely even seemed functional. Scientists tried to identify it through DNA analysis and got only a big, shrugging no match. Fast forward over a decade when researchers exploring the mid-Atlantic ridge reeled in similar specimens and finally cracked the code. A new species of whalefish. Living in the midnight zone over 3,300 feet deep, these fish probably don't see much, literally, as their tiny eyes lack lenses, but they sure left scientists with a fascinating deep-sea puzzle that took 15 years to solve. Next we are talking about the sea pencil. Off the coast of Victoria, Australia, an angler lifted a creature so odd, social media users couldn't stop coming up with wild guesses. Its elongated, ribbed body ended in a bright orange hook, and the more you stared at it, the more alien it seemed. Enter the sea pencil, an invertebrate from the same group as corals and sea anemones. It spends most of its life partially buried in the sea floor, filter feeding for tasty particles. Experts say it can reach lengths of up to 46 centimeters, but nobody really expects you to casually reel one in. When you're fishing for standard fare like snapper, finding a living writing utensil from the ocean is definitely not on the wish list. Coming in at our halfway mark, we have shark versus shark. Battling a monster fish for over 4 hours sounds like a dream come true to most anglers, until you discover something else is gnawing on your hard-earned catch. Off the coast of Australia, 2 fishermen were reeling in what felt like a massive swordfish, only to learn it was actually a thresher shark being eaten alive by an even larger predator. By the time they hauled in the half-devoured shark onto the boat, there was hardly any torso left. While they suspected other sharks or possibly a giant squid, the real culprit remains a mystery. It is definitely a brutal reminder that in the ocean, there is always something bigger lurking in the depths, ready to snatch your trophy right off the hook. Next we are talking about the battle. A Texas fisherman got a nasty surprise when the fish on his line came with a bonus: a snake wrapped around it in a death grip. As if hooking your dinner weren't enough, seeing a hungry serpent ready to chow down raises the question, who's actually in control here? The fisherman decided to play referee, using a knife to separate snake from fish. He then released them both, but not before earning bragging rights for the catch of the day. Talk about tension on the water. Reeling in a snake and a fish at the same time is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime event most anglers hope they'll never repeat. In our number 3 spot today, we have a literal grenade. Nobody expects a day out at the river to end with a bomb squad call, but that's exactly what happened when a fisherman in Gary, Indiana, hooked something suspicious from the murky depths of the Little Calumet River. Instead of a prize catch, he reeled in what looked like an explosive device. Local authorities weren't taking any chances. They shut down the nearest bridge and called in experts to investigate. While details remain scarce, the fisherman's day veered from calm casting to nerve-rattling drama in seconds. If you thought pulling up old boots were the worst that could happen, well, think again. Next we are talking about this ancient discovery. A quick cast into an Irish lake turned into a step back in time when a fisherman brought up a pair of massive antlers. These ancient horns sparked plenty of local speculation. Monstrous lake creature? Some supernatural beast from Gaelic folklore? Turns out the fear factor was all in our imaginations. Experts identified the remains as belonging to a 10,000-year-old giant elk. Though not exactly a water-dwelling terror, stumbling upon relics of an extinct megafauna can still jolt the nerves, especially before science steps in with logical answers. In another era, this find might have fueled campfire stories for generations. And finally, ending off our list today, we have a giant seahorse. In the tropical waters off Australia's coast, 2 fishermen were left stunned when they brought up a fish that looked like a cross between a seahorse and a serpent. One look at its horse-like head and slender body, capable of growing up to 8 meters long, was enough to start a frenzy on social media, with people calling it a giant seahorse or, quote, something out of a fantasy film. Turns out it was an oarfish. Oarfish rarely surface alive since they dwell in deep waters below 200 250 meters, so most encounters involve a dead specimen washed ashore. That rarity has spawned countless myths, including the eerie belief that they herald disasters, earning them the nickname doomsday fish. Scientists think these shimmering giants might even be the real-life inspiration for sea serpent legends. If you're out on a boat and an oarfish suddenly appears, you can bet everyone will be reaching for their phones, and maybe also saying a quick prayer or two, just in case.
Deep in the frozen wilds of Siberia, a creature straight out of prehistoric times was found curled up in the permafrost, a baby saber-toothed cat. It was discovered in 2020 near the Indigirka River, and despite being over 35,000 years old, the thing looked like it had only been dead a few days. It had thick fur, skin, claws, even its internal organs. It was all still there, and yes, the tiny sabers too. Scientists think it might have been buried in a landslide and flash frozen before decay could even start, and wasn't alone. Another cub, a few years younger, was found in the same region, preserved the same eerie way. But nobody's rushing to thaw these little killers out. The deeper they look, the more they realize just how little they know about these ancient predators. There's something about seeing a baby version of something so dangerous, though, that just hits different. Like, it's cute, but also very much not. In 2016, a gold miner working near Dawson City in Canada's Yukon Territory came across something in the permafrost, a perfectly preserved Ice Age wolf pup, frozen for over 57,000 years. It wasn't a skeleton or a pile of fur and bones, it was an entire wolf, with skin, fur, tiny claws, even some of its whiskers were still intact. Genetic testing showed that it came from an ancient extinct branch, older than modern gray wolves, and adapted to a world most humans wouldn't survive 5 minutes in. They think it died inside its den. Maybe the roof collapsed, maybe the ground shifted, but either way, something sealed it in tight and froze it solid before decay had even had a chance to start. And that kind of preservation doesn't happen unless the timing is perfect, and honestly, it's a little creepy how perfect it was. The more scientists studied it, the more questions they had about its species, about how it got so well preserved, about what else might be hiding under the ice just as intact. In the Siberian permafrost, scientists found 2 cave-lion cubs so well preserved they didn't really look ancient, they looked recent. But these weren't house cats. They were baby versions of Panthera spile, aka the Eurasian cave lion. These things were massive, possibly larger than modern lions, and built for brute power. They hunted mammoths, they hunted bison, they hunted each other. One study found bones of a cave lion that had been gnawed on by another cave lion. The 2 frozen cubs, dubbed Sparta and Boris, are estimated to be around 30,000 years old, and scientists still don't know how they died exactly, but they're so well preserved, they're actually talking of cloning. The thing is, nobody's sure what kind of animal behavior you'd get out of these things if you actually defrosted them. Their instincts are 30,000 years old and hardwired for a world we don't live in anymore. So what could possibly go wrong there? In 2015, researchers in Siberia discovered a frozen woolly rhino calf that had been locked in ice for over 34,000 years. Its name is Sasha, and it's the only baby woolly rhino ever found. And it's not just bones, this thing still had skin, hair, a stubby little horn, even muscle tissue. But don't let the baby part fool you, woolly rhinos were absolute tanks. Adults could weigh over 2 tons, with horns up to 3 feet long, and you'd think for their size that they'd be slow too, but fossil evidence shows they could charge like a freight train, and they likely had tempers to match. These animals were built for war against the cold, against predators, and sometimes even against each other. Ancient cave art shows humans were just terrified of these things, often drawing them mid-charge or goring other animals, or again locked in battle with each other. If anyone's thinking of cloning a few of these things, they'd better make sure the fencing is just really strong. You can't see them with the naked eye, but deloid rotifers are kind of freaky. These tiny aquatic creatures were found frozen in the Siberian permafrost, buried 11 feet deep and at least 24,000 years old. Scientists thawed them out and they started moving. So after 2.5 ice ages, they just woke up. They also cloned themselves. Deloid rotifers reproduce through parthenogenesis, which means they've got no need for males. They can just endlessly self-copy, and they don't just survive cold. They can endure radiation, starvation, dehydration, even the vacuum of space. Their bodies will just shut down but stay preserved, and then when conditions are right, they kind of reboot. Now, scientists are wondering how long they can actually last and how many more are still down there dormant, waiting. In the icy ground of Siberia, scientists have dug up baby mammoths so perfectly preserved they still have eyelashes. One of the most famous is Lyuba, found in 2007 by a reindeer herder. She's around 42,000 years old, but she still has skin, fur, internal organs. Even the milk from her mother is still inside her stomach. Another calf, Yuka, was found with strange cut marks on her bones, like something or someone had been trying to carve her up. Could have been ancient human butchering, attacks from other predators, but the truth is nobody knows exactly what happened. Every time one of these calves gets pulled from the permafrost, though, it cranks up the conversation about cloning, but even if they could bring one of these things back, should they? Once again in Siberia and Alaska, scientists have found ancient bison that are so well preserved they still had red in their veins. One of the best examples was discovered in 1979, a frozen bison they named Blue Babe because of this bluish tint from the minerals in the soil. The thing had muscle, skin, even visible wounds. It had clearly been killed by something, and then it froze before it could rot. But here's something pretty cool. These mummified bison showed signs of being stalked and eaten by predators that do not exist anymore. Deep claw marks, crushed vertebrae, and punctures that match the bite force of predators that have been extinct for a very, very long time. And scientists haven't just found one, there are multiple ancient bison mummies turning up as the permafrost melts, and each one paints a clear picture of this brutal predatory world buried under the ice. They're also keeping samples for cloning research potentially, so if you ever wanted to see a prehistoric beast brought back from the dead, they are kind of working on it. In Yukon, Canada, buried in the permafrost, scientists uncovered the frozen remains of Ice Age horses that once galloped across the tundra in massive herds. Obviously, they weren't like today's horses. They were stockier, hairier, adapted to survive in some of the harshest conditions Earth has ever seen. One foal, perfectly preserved, was found in a gold mine in 2018, still covered in reddish-brown fur. Hooves, eyelashes, even its stomach contents intact. It was over 40,000 years old, but looked more like it had just lain down for a nap. The species, Aquis lambe, went extinct thousands of years ago, but DNA from these frozen animals are so well preserved sometimes, scientists are seriously considering using it for cloning. The idea is to bring them back, and not just as a curiosity, but possibly to repopulate the tundra with them to help slow permafrost melt. Because right now it's melting faster than ever, and we're seeing more and more pieces of an ecosystem that hasn't seen sunlight in tens of thousands of years, and not everything coming out of the ice is dead. In 2014, scientists digging through 30,000-year-old permafrost in Siberia found something that was very much not extinct, a virus, a massive one. So big you could see it under a regular microscope. They called it Pithovirus sibericum, and it's part of a terrifying new category, giant viruses. Two words you just don't want to hear right beside each other. Well, this ancient giant virus actually reanimated after being frozen for tens of thousands of years, and more of these ancient viruses have been found since, buried in melting ice, all still capable of waking up and infecting hosts. The one they revived didn't target humans, just amoebas, thankfully. But that's the part that makes researchers nervous. If some ancient virus can survive that long, what else is waiting to thaw? And are we even remotely prepared for it? Because you can quarantine, a lion, you can contain a mammoth, but a virus you've never dealt with before, good luck. In Canada's Yukon Territory, scientists came across bones and fragments of an animal that sounds made up: giant ice age camels. Yes, camels in the snow. Kind of a bizarre image. Not the two-humped animals we know today, obviously. They were massive and built to survive brutal cold, not scorching heat. They had long legs, thick fat stores, and bones tougher than steel. Fossils of these ancient camels were found in gold mines near Dawson City, preserved in permafrost so well, researchers were able to extract collagen from their bones, something that usually doesn't survive past a few thousand years. These camels would have roamed the same icy landscape as mammoths, direwolves, and saber-toothed cats. Some estimates say they stood over 9 feet tall, and while they might not look terrifying at first glance, just their sheer size, the power, the fact that they existed in this totally different version of North America, it makes them feel more like monsters than mammals. Scientists still don't completely understand how they adapted to such extreme environments or how they disappeared, but every time the ground thaws a little more bones come up, and we're starting to realize just how alien the Ice Age really was. What you're looking at here is well, I don't really know what the hell this thing is, and neither does the uploader. Redditor J. Turley85 uploaded the footage, writing, "My wife's coworker went out hunting this past weekend. They apparently took a pack of dogs out with them. While in the mountains, 2 of the dogs ran off. They chased them and found them both ripped apart after some searching. While trying to look for whatever caused it, they found this and recorded it through their scope. I tried to upscale the video for clarity, but this was the best I could get. Anyone know what this could be? The arms look like they have hair coming off it, and they look extremely long and skinny. At first I thought it could be another hunter, but I can't be sure. And yeah, I don't know, it could maybe be a hunter with a sheet over their head for like camouflage or something, but along with the story about all the dogs having been ripped apart, definitely makes whatever this thing is a lot stranger, and I don't like how it moves. What you're looking at here is said to be footage of a creature known as the Lake Van monster, something that's been spotted in this lake in eastern Turkey. The first sighting goes way back to 1889, but it really grabbed headlines between 1995 and 1997 when more and more people started reporting on it. Over 1,000 people claim they've seen it. In 1997, a university assistant named Unal Kozak even filmed what he claimed was the creature, and the footage still stirs up arguments to this day. Some folks swear they see a beak in the footage, others think he just grabbed a clip of a swimming elephant. So if anyone can find a longer clip of a swimming elephant that matches up with this video, something that would have been available in 1997, please share in the comments. Maybe we can solve this together. Until then though, this one is gonna remain a mystery. Alright, this next video is really interesting because people can't really seem to decide if they think it's a creature or some type of unidentified flying object. The clip was posted to YouTube by Montana Mullet Militia, who wrote in the description, "Was out coyote hunting last night and caught this on film. It was super bizarre, 37 degrees outside, white hot mode." So this was captured on a thermal camera. Those little white specks are believed to be coyotes, with their bright colors showing that they're warm compared to their environment. The darker figure or object, first appearing to kind of run, then later seeing to fly, shows up colder than everything else around it, which is why it looks dark in the footage. As for what the hell this thing is, well, your guess is as good as mine. This photo was taken back in 1934 by a Swiss photographer named Balkan. He claimed he saw something strange near a log, some kind of creature that didn't look like anything he'd seen before, so he took a photo of it, and the picture kicked up quite a bit of interest. It even inspired a German magazine to sponsor a full-blown expedition to track down the creature. But like a lot of cryptid hunts, the trip was a bust, and people kinda moved on. But there have still been some strange sightings since. What exactly is this thing? Well, it's known as the Tatzelworm, a legendary beast from alpine folklore. It's said to have been haunting the mountains of Europe for centuries. Descriptions vary, but most say it looks like a chunky, cat-faced reptile, but with no back legs. Sometimes doesn't even have any at all, a bit more snake-like. Sightings have been reported all over the Alps, from Switzerland and Austria to parts of Germany and northern Italy. And it goes by a bunch of different names depending on where you are. Names which I'm gonna pronounce perfectly: stollenworm, springworm, and pratzelworm, just to name a few. Even in modern times, people still claim to see it. So was the tatzelworm just a tall tale, or did this photographer really capture something strange slithering through the Alps? Alright, this next one, nope, absolutely not. Someone's home security camera picked up what can only be described as pure nightmare fuel. There's this pale, creepy looking creature crouched in the bushes outside their house, just staring off into the distance, looking around. Glowing eyes, long limbs, totally bald. And when it stands up, it's tall, uncomfortably tall. People in the comments have been saying it looks like a Slender Man or a rake. There's also something else going on here. Some viewers pointed out it almost looks like it's wearing a black cloak or something. A cloaked, glowing-eyed rake demon thing. Again, that's a yikes for me. The face is the worst part. It's just blank. There's no mouth, no nose, nothing but those eerie, glowing eyes. If I saw this outside my house, I would be gone. Keep the house. Take the furniture. I don't care. What do you think this thing was, though? An alien, a demon, a hoax? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. This video was taken by a fishing guide in Saskatchewan who spotted this massive wolf near his lodge. And I mean prehistorically massive. As if you need me to tell you that. Just look at it. The man spotted it from his window and decided to grab his camera. He stepped outside to get a better shot and the wolf backed off. But then it came back, and that's when his dog Trigger decided to chase after the thing. Waited for Trigger to turn her back, and in a blink it grabbed her by the hindquarters and tossed her in the air like a rag doll. That happens off camera because the guy rightly stopped filming and, went to save his dog. Luckily, the guy's buddy came out running with a shotgun, firing it into the air to break up the fight, and the wolf ran off. But not for long. It was bold enough to come back a couple more times. Luckily, there's no more trouble and the dog was okay aside from a few cuts. But things would have gone way worse if they hadn't scared the thing off in time. So this next clip comes from a Reddit user with the unforgettable name Panty Dinner 2003. The clip was captured in Louisiana. It starts off pretty normal. A couple guys are filming a field, catching some deer in the shot, along with a few dark shapes that look like dogs. So far, all good, but there's something that steps out of the trees, and it is not normal. This thing comes charging out of the woods, and it kinda looks like it's galloping, but it's definitely not a horse, and it sure isn't human either. It's got these long, creepy arms and seems to be running on all fours, but not in the way your typical four-legged animals do. This thing is off. Now, at first, I wasn't totally buying the laughter behind the camera, gotta be honest. I thought, all right, maybe this is staged, but I don't know. It could also be that nervous laughter, the kind people do when they're freaked out and just don't know how to process what they're seeing. What do you think? Weird animal? Skinwalker? Let me know which theory you're going with down in the comments. This next video comes out of Mexico. Two men came out to their back porch to find an owl acting very strangely. So strangely, in fact, they started to wonder if it was a shape-shifting witch or a bruja. A bruja is usually seen as a woman who uses magic, sometimes for good, sometimes for darker stuff. Some are said to cast curses and shapeshift. They show up a lot in ghost stories and creepy legends, especially in rural areas in Mexico. In some tales, a bruja might appear as an old woman, a mysterious animal, or a shadowy figure flying through the night. Now, the guys filming were kind of jokingly talking to this owl, asking if it was a bruja, but man, if the sun was down and you were alone and you saw this, I don't think you'd be asking that question in jest. I just do not like how this owl is moving, the way it starts stretching out its neck like that. Just no. Is it a scared or injured owl, or could there be something else going on here? This video was uploaded to TikTok by Jay Hayson, who simply wrote that these girls broke into his backyard and were watching him. Seems to me they were doing a lot more than just watching. One tells him to come out here, let's have fun. The other just cranes her net back makes all these very unsettling faces, mostly just by opening her mouth all wide. And yeah, it seems like a great idea to go out there. Now, if this video is genuine, for one, it's very creepy. Those ladies were clearly not of sound mind at the time. And two, this was a very, very bad idea on the girl's part. Don't break into people's backyards and stare at them. At best, you've scared a stranger in their own home. Worst case scenario, you get shot at and you die, especially if you're in America. Doesn't matter if this one's a guy in a costume or some kind of prank. This is the kind of thing that would make me pack up my whole life and move to a different country. The video was posted to TikTok by Fast Bites Horror, and according to the description, a traveler had stumbled across this freaky creature hiding in the shadows, perched up on a ledge, just glaring down at him. And the poor guy is so scared, he starts praying out loud. You can hear the fear in his voice. And while I may not be religious myself, if I saw this thing, I definitely would be. I'm like, well, I guess Satan really does exist. What you're looking at here may not look like much at first glance. It's a snake. I mean, big deal, right? Well, the thing is, this is an aerial photograph taken way up in a helicopter. That snake is said to have been 50 feet long. Back in 1959, Colonel Remy van Leerde, an experienced Belgian World War II fighter pilot, was flying a helicopter over the Congo. As he's flying over the jungle in the Katanga region, he spots something moving down below. He claimed it was a massive snake, and it would have had to be for it to catch his eye way up in a chopper.
Then I was already flying for 25 years, so I have a very good experience of measuring things. And I would say the snake I saw there was close to 50 foot.
The snake had green and brown scales, and a head that was apparently 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. You could fit a grown man in its mouth. And as he flew in closer, the snake rose up off the ground about 10 feet into the air like it was trying to strike at the chopper. Van Leerde circled around a few times so someone else on board could snap a photo of it. Of course, skeptics have their doubts, but he stuck to his story up until his death in 1990. But what do you think he saw out there in the jungle? A new species, a leftover from the dinosaur age, or was the whole story a hoax? Let me know what you think in the comments. This next story takes us deep into the heart of Texas, a little rural spot called Dabina out in Fayette County. Michael Demmel captured something really strange on a hunting camera on his property. He has a bunch of these cameras set up, using them to track wildlife like coyotes, bobcats, and raccoons. These motion sensor cameras take about 100 pictures a day, and Michael goes through them every single day. He's been doing this for 10 years, so when he says something looks off, that's really saying something. Well, one night he captured whatever this thing was. He said he thought it was a monkey at first, and to be fair, in the blurry photo it kinda does look like one. Of course, that would still be very, very strange. There are no monkeys just running around in Texas unless one escaped from a zoo, and no, there were no monkey jailbreaks reported. So he shows the image to some friends, tries to get some answers, and the photo eventually hits the local news. Some say the thing looks a lot like a chupacabra, the legendary cryptid that's been blamed for livestock deaths for decades. Others think it has a bit of an alien or skinwalker kind of vibe. Now, the creature's about as big as a medium-sized dog, but the body shape, the face, totally off. Michael said, "In the 10 years I've been reviewing my cameras, I have never encountered anything like it." Even the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department got involved. They looked at the photo but ruled out any normal animal, saying it didn't look like a baby deer or anything they could easily identify. I always liked to imagine Spider-Man was real when I was a kid. Kinda always hoped I'd see him swinging around up there one day. Well, I would have been thrilled to see this next video. This footage was captured at the pedestrian bridge in Kiev, not where you'd be expecting to spot the web slinger, but superheroes do get around. Now clearly this is a person crawling under the bridge, but even so, why? I mean, this is pretty dangerous. That water down below does not look very deep. Unless this person has actual web slinging abilities, if they fall, they're getting hurt or worse. So who is this person? Is it just a thrill seeker? Are they out of their mind? Or is there a chance that this isn't even a person at all and that the camera person caught something otherworldly crawling under that bridge. This piece of footage was uploaded to Reddit by user KeyProposal8529. Some sort of strange creature was peering out at them from the woods. They wrote, "Hello all, I live near the Trail of Tears in Missouri. As I got home one night, I saw this thing in the woods by my house. From where it was standing, it has to be tall because there's a ditch right below where it stands. Any ideas? I'm terrified. Yes, I stayed in my car until I got the balls to run inside my house." Now, I have no idea what this thing could be. It's hard to make out, but if the Redditor is telling the truth here, then this is a pretty creepy piece of footage, because they pass by this area constantly. I mean, it's right outside their home. They know when something is out of place. A Reddit user out in the Midwest has been spotting a strange creature in their neighborhood. First, they posted these images along with a caption reading, "These are photos taken in the Midwest from an iPhone at night. The cryptid in question randomly appears in the same spot. Once a person begins to approach, it will vanish. It was seen again a few weeks ago and moved at an incredible speed across a few backyards. A local dog will bark at the spot that it appears in, even when it's not there. Trail cams will be set up soon. Please give me some ideas as to what it could be." The Redditor also posted an update with a video attached. This time, we can supposedly hear whatever this strange creature is. They wrote in the description, "We've got a video of the cryptid making what sounds like a scream. My friend was trying to find where it was standing but couldn't see it. Once the video ended, it appeared again in his yard but vanished as he went to get his phone again." This video was uploaded to YouTube by Paranormal Planet, who'd been exploring an ice cave in Hallstatt, Austria. Most of the video is pretty standard touristy type footage of the cave until we get to the end and see whatever this is. That is a pretty freaky looking creature. Now, my first thought was like, I don't know, maybe it's a frog or something, but according to the uploader, this thing was the size of a large man, and they were also standing far enough away that they wouldn't have picked it up in this kind of detail if it was something as small as a frog. So if that's to be believed, then this is a pretty strange piece of footage, and honestly, the more I do look at it, the less frog-like this thing really looks. I mean, frogs don't really articulate like this, and they don't usually chill in ice caves either. And the way it bends its limbs almost looks like how a human would climb, except it's way too long and spindly to be a person. So I don't know what this is. Let me know your thoughts down below. This next video was posted to Facebook by a man named Clay Shiner. He was filming the woods one evening because he spotted something moving just behind the tree line. Turns out, was not a bear. The thing that really struck me about this video is how long this thing's arms are. At first it just looks like, you know, a typical formless black shape hiding in the trees like so many Sasquatch videos you see. But when it steps forward a bit and stretches its arms out to the sides, it's like, damn, those are long, very ape-like and very creepy. Reddit user Adjacent Gunman posted this image with the caption, "Over a year ago, this picture was taken by a trail cam back on my property. This version has been lightened. It's something holding a dead coyote by the throat, and it stands about 7.5 to 8 feet tall." He also posted an unedited version of the image. He said he based the thing's height off of where its eyes are compared to his cabin. Now, this thing is hard to make out, but there's definitely something there. Could it be a bear standing on its hind legs? Possibly, but the way it's holding its prey, it looks almost humanoid. But I don't know, maybe that's just my wishful thinking. I wholeheartedly want Bigfoot to be real. Uploaded to the YouTube channel Hola Bible in 2011, this video really creeped a lot of people out. The uploader said he'd been hearing some strange sounds coming from the forest behind his home in Oregon. Keep in mind, he lived 6 miles from the nearest city. He went out to investigate with a night vision camera. Well, he didn't get very far before he came across the source of these strange noises. Crouching in some brush was some sort of odd-looking, hairless creature. He zooms into the thing a bit, trying to make out what the hell it is, and then this happens. So it looks like Gollum was lurking around this guy's woods, or an alien, or a rake. It looks like a lot of things, all of them creepy, none of which you'd want skulking around in your backyard. I just hope this dude moved. And finally, I have another piece of Bigfoot footage for you. This video comes out of Russia, and in it, we we see some folks filming some woods near their property. They'd spotted something sprinting through the trees, and what they see is pretty shocking. What's really cool about this video is how the thing moves. How many supposed Bigfoot videos do you see where it's just this figure like lumbering through the trees like a dude in a costume, unsure of their footing? You kind of see them trying to keep their balance. Well, that is not the case here. This thing is sprinting at high speed and leaping across the ground as if it's an animal that is very familiar with its environment. That's why this has become such a well-known clip in the Sasquatch community, which no, I'm not a part of, but my interest is still very much there.